Now let me open this lab notebook and see what is inside of a typical lab notebook. Just like the regular books, the first few pages are the table of contents pages. The purpose of the table of contents pages are to help the readers to quickly locate what they are looking for. There are 3 columns for the table of contents pages. The first column are the days of the experiments. The third column are the page numbers of the experiments. In the middle, you must put down the experiment number and the experiment title. The experiment title must be the same as in the handout. There are 2 parts for each experiment. The first part is called lab notes. The second part is called report. You must have the lab notes ready before you enter the lab. You will finish the lab notes by the time you finish the experiment because you need to put down the numbers from the measurements in the lab notes. After the experiment, you will write a report. Normally, I ask the students to write the report in the lab notebook, but this year, I want the students to write an electronic report. Although I do not have the lab report in the notebook, but I still leave an entry here to indicate for each lab, I have 2 parts. Instead of put down the pages, I put down electronic to indicate the lab report is an electronic report. On each page, you must have a page number. For the table of contents pages, I use Roman numerals, and for the lab note pages, I use Arabic numbers. But you can use all Arabic numbers if you want. It's not a big deal. Another question is, how many pages for the table of contents? Well, this is really up to you. For a 100-page notebook, you probably need to have about 2 to 5 table of contents pages. But it really depends on how big you write. Like my handwriting, I think 5 pages will be more than enough. But I use both sides, page 1, page 2. So if I leave 5 pages, it means 10 pages. Then let's look at the details of the first experiment, lab notes. It starts from page 1 and ends with page 5. So let's flip to page 1 first. Page 1. On top of the lab notes, you should put down the experiment number and the complete experiment title. As I said, the experiment title should be the same as in the handout. The next line will show the experimental date and your lab partner name. Because I do not have a lab partner, so I put down N/A to indicate I do not have a lab partner. Even if you do not have one, put down lab partner N/A. There are 3 parts for each experiment lab notes. The first part is called purposes of the experiment. If you read the handout or you watch the video, you will understand what you're looking for. I mean, the purposes of the experiment. You put them down here. The next part is called experimental procedure. For the experimental procedure, it describes what you're going to do or what was done. Before you enter the lab, you haven't done anything yet. Therefore, you should put down what you plan to do. Sometimes you don't know what instruments you're going to use and how to use them. In that case, you can only write down the purpose of the steps. For example, you may just want to take the mass of an empty graduate cylinder. Then you just put down, take the mass of an empty graduate cylinder. If you know what instrument you're going to use, then you can write down, get the mass of an empty graduate cylinder with an electronic balance. But if you know more details, you should put down more details. For example, for the first experiment, I prepared videos. I showed you what needs to be done when you are in the lab. Therefore, you can put down a lot more details about the procedure. The purpose of the experiment procedure is, after a few years, if you want to repeat what was done, then you take out your lab notebook and look at the procedure. You can follow what was written in the lab notebook. You can repeat what you did. Or if you hand this procedure to another student, that student can repeat what you did without any help from you. That will be a good procedure. Let's look at my procedure. From step 1 to step 3, I want to take the mass measurement of an empty gravity cylinder. I described what instrument was used. I also mentioned the exact name of the gravity cylinder I want to take a measurement for. And also, I described the condition of the gravity cylinder, which is empty and dry. So, this is a very good procedure. Let me read the procedure for you. The first step is to close the top door and side doors of the electronic balance. Next, zero the electronic balance by pressing the tare button. Make sure the weighing pen is clean and dry and there's nothing on top of the weighing pen. The third step is to open the side door of the electronic balance. Place an empty and dry 10 milliliter gravity cylinder on top of the weighing pen. Close the side door. Wait until the reading does not change. The reading is the mass of the empty gravity cylinder. Record the mass in the data table on page 5, table 1. Let me remind you, do not put down persons. For example, I do this, or my lab partner does this. You just describe what is done. Do not put the persons there. Then, let's look at the third part. The third part is the data and observations. Mainly, I need data tables to record the measurements. Before you enter the lab, you need to read the handout very carefully. If there are videos, you need to watch the videos very carefully. Then you will know what measurements need to be done. If you are prepared enough, then you will know what measurements need to be done and when your experiment will be done. Because if you fill in all the blanks of the tables, then your experiment will be done, right? Okay, another reminder. When you design the table, make sure you leave big spaces for the numbers. Because if you record the numbers, sometimes you may have typos. Or maybe you just record the wrong number. If you leave enough space, then you can cross out the wrong numbers. Then write down a new number in the same place. But if you do not have enough space, you need to draw a new table. Clearly, it's not efficient. Therefore, it is a good idea to leave enough spaces for the numbers from your measurements. Another reminder, it's not possible to avoid typos. If you write down anything wrong, you put a line across the word, then put down the correct word next to it. Do not use erasers to erase the wrong thing completely. Because when you present this laboratory notebook as evidence in the court, people may wonder, did you erase something important? It's hard to defend yourself. So put a line across. You can still read it, but you know it's wrong. Another reason to put a line on top of the number or the word is sometimes when you analyze your results, you may realize that, oh, the original number was correct. Then you still have the numbers. And also, do not scramble the words or the numbers. Make sure you put a line across. Make the word still readable. The last reminder, when you write down anything in your lab notebook, use pens. Do not use pencils. Use blue or black pens. Do not use color pens. Because when I grade, I use red pens to grade. If you write red notes, it will be very hard for me to grade.